So, hello and welcome to another chat here in the Talking About Testing channel. My name is Valmir, and today I'm here with Ioana. How are you, Ioana?
Hey, I'm really good. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And for you that are watching, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this content with other people. Today, we're going to talk about community contributions. And I I met with Ioana last year in 2021 at the TestJS Summit, which was an awesome event that I was able to participate as an MC, and Ioana was an MC as well. And then we met, and during that time, I remember that I asked her if she would like to be here in the channel. She accepted, so now Ioana is here with us. Ioana, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ioana Chiorean. I am from Romania. Currently, just moved to Berlin or spending some time in Berlin. Otherwise, I would be around Cluj-Napoca, Romania. You know, the heart of Transylvania, they call. But I swear, I'm not a vampire. And then we cannot ever say that publicly. That's why we record in the evenings, just after the sun passed. And I spent around 12, 13, I think 13 years now in IT field in different roles. It is my main specialization, I would call the IT field.
Yeah. And what's your background, Ioana?
Yeah, I have a background in quality assurance in testing. I started testing different devices for automotives and also GPS devices, I would say. I switched after to a big corporation working on mobile application, and I specialized there a lot. After that, well, combined with that would be also web. I was a
Hmm.
contractor for Firefox for Android, and in that role, I grew from being a quality assurance engineer to project manager. Well, of course, went to team lead, and after that, being the project manager for the mobile application and also web compat project that they have there.
Nice.
What is that
So,
being a contractor for Mozilla overlap with my experience as a volunteer? So I've been a volunteer with them. I been contractor. I ended my work with the corporation last year, and I continue as a volunteer there. Last year in December, I switched to engineer manager at my current role at Cost and Box product, costandbox.io.
that's awesome. I was going to ask you because I imagine that since you contribute to Firefox, there it's like an open source community, like the one of the greatest open source browsers that we have. And I wanted to explore a little bit more about like how did you started contributing? What is your story with Firefox, with Mozilla? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so in general with Mozilla, but definitely one of the major projects that they have, and also the one that you can contribute more is Firefox, both the
Yeah.
desktop version and the mobile. I started literally when I was still a student slash started working in my third year of university when they literally launched back then the persona. After that, it's called theme. So it was the background that you put to the web browser in order to have a personalized one. Maybe you want a color, maybe you want your favorite logo, maybe you have a company or NGO that you want to promote and you create a personalized theme for it.
Hmm.
So of course, I was very enthusiastic about different hobbies back then, and one of my um, back then activity was to volunteer at a student organization in the university. So I created one of the teams with the logo of the organization. We had around, I don't know, maybe 100 members. So I was super happy to create the team and promote it, but it was a long, long queue of approval. So it was
Hmm.
there a button saying like, "Hey, thanks for your submission, but we are just a few people, so we will take a bit to triage them or to approve them. But if you want to help us, give us a sign and maybe you can contribute." And
Nice.
again, Cluj-Napoca, Transylvania, East Europe, kind of very far from Silicon Valley. And I was like, whatever, I'll just press that button. Who knows what happened? They will never reply for sure. It's just an automatic message. And it was super funny because next day I literally had a mail from them, from an employee in that team. I later met the person and they just replied, "Thanks for your help. If you want to review here our criteria, we will look for this in dimension, messages that the team transmit to be respectful and all of that. Let us know if that will work for you. And I was like, yeah, of course. Honestly, I think I spent like a day thinking, like, seriously, someone from Silicon Valley wrote me, like, what's up with them, It was like, they are busy people, they're creating a browser. And yeah, I started contributing to teams and spending more time in the browser or even communicating with the community. I found out that there is a local community in Romania too. Most of the activities done by local communities back then were localization of the products, different projects or pages in Mozilla had.
Hmm.
I was studying computer science in English back then, so I was
Hmm.
literally the opposite of some good localization. But I stick around the team. I started to, you know, do little stuff, try to translate. It was very hard for me at the beginning because I was learning all about computing in English, so I was not used to localizing in Romanian. But I
Hmm.
started learning, and I did more of that. So that was the first step. After Mozilla literally organized better with a group that I now run, Mozilla Reps, and I joined that group around 10 years ago, 10 years and something. And again, that was pretty much the best experience with community that I have. And I'm very happy and honored to be module owner for that project right now.
It seems that you're very passionate about communities by
It is.
listening
I
to
am.
telling the story. Uh, so it was Mozilla, and one thing that I wanted to mention actually before asking one thing, since you worked into localization, this is one thing that I find very impressive on Mozilla. Like, I am Brazilian, I speak Portuguese. If I go to Mozilla Docs, there's documentation in Portuguese for everything that I need. It's just awesome. I just love it. And but I was curious to understand if Mozilla was how you started doing community contributions, or you know, or if you got involved in communities before.
So Mozilla was my first online community that I attended.
Hmm.
I briefly mentioned that I was a volunteer with a student organization back in my university time. So I was doing volunteer work. I knew what it means to be a volunteer, meaning that you don't get paid for your work, but
Hmm.
I really have a big emphasis here, but you get lots of other stuff. You learn, you get the opportunity to learn so many things. You take ownership for stuff. That's also something as a volunteer, if you commit to something, people do expect you to do it. You're not
Hmm.
a
For sure.
everyone understands stuff happen, but communication should happen. So I learned from my student organization a lot on this side. So I knew how to volunteer, how to drive stuff, do things. Mozilla was the first time when I did this online,
Hmm.
and especially something in the tech universe, because with our student organization I was doing events, helping other students. We did have tech events there, like company talks and all that, but I wasn't contributing necessarily code or something technical side. So that
Hmm.
was the first time when I learned, to be honest, about Mozilla being so big as open source. I literally got angry with my university because they didn't promote open source software, from operating system to browsers to apps, in terms of learning curves for students. I felt that literally I missed an opportunity to do all my contributions as homework for open source. We had um, a field of study called open source code, open source software, and we had to implement an operating system basic. And unfortunately, admitting here on camera, I think half of the group copied the same thing online. No one literally thought to make a page maybe to Ubuntu or other open source software out there to
Hmm.
have a patch in a big project internationally recognized. That in your CV is 10 times more valuable than
Copying and
taking
pasting
the,
something from
yeah,
the internet,
a
right?
project that everyone has it, or little project that you start and are less meaningful than being part of a huge project like open
Yeah.
source.
I have a big friend, a good friend who contributes to open source projects like ESLint, for instance, and he helps people growing and getting their first job in tech. And he always says that if you can contribute to an open source project that is well known by others, it's great to have this kind of contribution in your CV because it's something that impresses employers and things like that. So,
Exactly, and
what's
brings
your
value, and that
sorry?
brings value a lot. And I said exactly, and it brings more value, and you
Exactly.
kind of simulate the workforce, because you work with teams, you have to communicate back to those teams. It's not you building a side project on a laptop for school. It's something that you take part of something bigger.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned as well, like you're not paid when you are volunteer, but you get a lot. And one thing that I find awesome that when you volunteer you gain is basically helping people, knowing that people are like when I participate of something community related and someone else comes to me later and says, you know what, you helped me getting into an interview or getting in a job or something. It's something that has no value. It's like it's you know it's just awesome to be able to help others, I think.
Yes.
So I was going to ask you, what's your value, what's the value you see in being part of a community,
Um, I think the
personally
bigger,
or even professionally?
so I think that one of the biggest values or the biggest thing that you can learn or get out of working with community is life experience. And this means like from professional to personal, like you are
Hmm.
in a situation that you need to find solutions for. You,
Yeah.
again, I mentioned, you have to take ownership of some work, you drive some work. Not all the time in your job day, you get this opportunity so easily to have a project that you own and drive. So
Hmm.
this, with the open source project or volunteer in general, you can try to get it, work on it, see if you like it, and after that, adopt in your real life slash work life. And why I mean is this is important because I got to, I don't know, travel alone for the first time. You had to do all the stuff by yourself, not to get lost, to know where to
Hmm.
go, speak in front of the public. I think I did more than 100 talks by now in 12 years, I would say.
That's
It's not that I
impressive.
never spoke with audiences, but speaking with my friends or slash this small community in the university field versus
Yeah.
speaking to unknown people or even more, tech specialized people, engineers from all around the world. And I've been to international events. It's very different. So I had to face situation that otherwise I could not deal with. So I think the main gain is this: the experience you get from different situations slash roles that you have in communities that build you up along the way. You grow while you are in the communities.
I loved it. And I think it's nice because it's also usually, or it should be at least, a place where you can get these experiences in a safety environment where you are encouraged to do that. It's not someone are judging you. It's like they are supporting you to grow, right?
Exactly, 100%. And sometimes, maybe not all the times, but in most cases, you if you fail, it's
Hmm.
definitely easy to fail in such projects in communities that you feel safe or they support you than to say fail at your work where you have way more things to be afraid of, like
Yeah.
payment, fail of the project. In these communities, as you mentioned, hopefully all the time you it's a safe space for you, and by that also means that someone is there setting the way for you to succeed, not
Hmm.
to fail. And also they are mentoring or holding hands to you, so you're not alone. I would say most of the times
Yeah.
you're not alone in community, so even if you fail, it's easier to fail there than in a other environment like work environment.
Yeah. And when you fail, I think it's seen as a learning opportunity than of something that you did wrong, right?
Exactly, yes.
Do you have any surprising stories that have happened to you because you were part of a community that you could share with us?
Well, I think the funniest and first one was that I was a volunteer before being contractor. I interviewed with this company in Cluj, and they were giving me an example back after 1 year of being in the field. And they
Hmm.
say, hey, for example, if you will work for Firefox or Mozilla Firefox, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, if I would work, I'm already volunteer lady. They are, open program. So they know, just to find out the next day after I signed with them that I will be joining Mozilla Firefox's team. And I was like, okay, so they do have volunteers and also contractors. And I
Yeah.
ended up after almost a year, I would say, like maybe 10 months to work on that. It was amazing, to be honest. It was such a nice coincidence and a funny story to say. After that, I think all these, I mentioned before traveling, I made friends in these communities, online communities, that I spent my holidays with them. I attended their weddings in
Awesome.
different countries or other continents. I learned so much about their culture. Otherwise, I wouldn't have friends all around the world or didn't know so much about all the cultures around the world. I think for me, this was the first or the most valuable thing that I learned or gained through communities, the
Hmm.
value of people, friends, or even acquaintances, a nice network that I always have something new to learn from, conferences, or even meeting people like you, different opportunities again to grow or to build up or to learn more all the time. I think this
Yeah.
is the most, for me, the most important thing about communities, my gain.
I recorded a podcast a few weeks ago where we talked about communities, me and a friend. And we mentioned that in the beginning we were a bit shy when we went to conferences, even small meetups, and we
Yeah,
would stay with our group. Nowadays, what I want is to go to people that I have no idea who they are, because I want to, increase my network. I want to know people that have different backgrounds and things like that. And communities give you that. But one curiosity that I have, which is not in our agenda, is how do you still connect with people nowadays in a pandemic moment where conferences and things, communities are happening online? I think it's very possible to still connect with people, but I wanted to hear from your side how does that work?
it's a different. It's definitely a different experience.
Hmm.
I wouldn't tag it less qualitative or something, but it's at least different. And one example is all these big events from all hands that Mozilla had, for example, where they mostly invite employees and a few volunteers called volunteers, or like conferences, where indeed you were going to talk about the subject or to work with your team, but
Hmm.
there were those moments while you go from hotel to the conference venue or between the conference talks, 10 minutes of break. Those were the moments, like you said, you were going and networking. And even if it was not on purpose, it's not that,
Yeah,
oh, I have to take with 10 people, talk to 10 people today. But you're waiting in line for a coffee. Someone will
yeah,
say hi, will have asked you what to do. You learn more about their stuff. This is in the Mozilla community, for example, you will learn about all the projects in one session.
yeah.
When the pandemic hit and they did organize an all hands online, it was
Hmm.
nice. We were going to some rooms or some talks, but this definitely I didn't wake up in the morning with someone bringing coffee or sharing a coffee while we walked to the venue. It was
Yeah.
still online and still different. But it changed, and I think going forward, a hybrid will come for sure. I do
Hmm.
think you can keep in touch. And in my case, for example, it's either connection of work. I see them working on some project, or they tell me about some project, and I get to
Hmm.
give them a review, help them with that, or just congratulate them, with even if it's a social media like LinkedIn or private chats on different apps that we communicate.
Hmm.
That has metrics, for example, implemented with them as a chat, and other social media where volunteers hang around as module owner for Mozilla Reps. We do use metrics and Telegram, for example, and all the
Hmm.
times I try to engage with people besides the technical work or the core contributions that we do. They share, personal celebration, having kids, or giving a talk in their community, or even organizing, teaching someone
Yeah.
how to code. Stuff like this, the little things that all the times keep in touch is reacting to people, or proactively contact them, asking them if they are fine. We give a lot of support these days, and being a large community online and going outside even of Mozilla community, because you spoke at conferences, so you met people. Other people did contributions for Mozilla, and their profile on GitHub or other stuff, and you know how much they work for different projects. You can always encourage them and support them in their roles.
Yeah, I loved it, and I super support the idea of getting to know them personally and not just talking about work related stuff, because when you are in person with people, you usually talk about people that are not just work related, and I think that is what makes difference. What makes the difference, like when you have more empathy because you know the person really, like their context and things like that.
Yeah. I think in real world, not online, I mean, you
Hmm.
see, you can read people easier. I was saying
Yeah,
this for work related stuff. As a project manager, I was looking at my team coming in the morning, some with their coffee, happy and stuff, some from the gym, either worked out or already tired, or, and I
yeah,
could understand that they are emotionally on a scale of good, bad. I should talk to them, keep
yeah.
away. And like that. It's a bit harder online indeed, but let's hope for the best. Let's hope things improve.
Yeah, I like to look at it as opportunities for us to improve the way we do this kind of things because I think, as you mentioned, like the hybrid model would be the future, but we have to try to, make good use of the technology that we have in our hands as well. One other thing that I wanted to know from you is how was being an MC at the Test.js Summit last year in 2021?
Oh, was an interesting experience. We were first reviewing the talks and the speaker, and after that, I said, "Okay, I can help with that too. I step in for that too." I have this idea in the back of my mind that MCs are highly underrated, and not in terms of literally someone to rate my talk or rate my work, but we kind of overlook them. So
Mm,
I've emceed a lot of events, again internationally or locally in Romania, and most of the times I feel like people take for granted this role. Oh, it's someone there. But not only me, but many MCs sometimes save the day. Something happens and they are paying attention that the slides don't go okay, or the speaker has, bad sound, or they forgot to add a thing and they can add it at the end.
hmm.
They keep an eye on what communities write in the channels while the talk goes. I even had this at another event, not at TestJS, the fact that the speaker slides were not working at all and people were commenting in the chat. I was not there as an MC, and I was trying to get the attention of that
Hmm.
person to notify the speaker. And then I felt like, oh my God, this is how an MC does well or not, and say they save the day or not.
Yeah.
And why it's underrated is because people say, like, oh, Ioana doesn't deliver a talk at this conference. She's just MC. But
Mm,
delivering a talk is maybe sometimes at least 10 times easier because you know the
yeah.
talk, you rehearse it. As an MC, I have to improvise. I can ask the speaker, hey, how are you doing? And the speaker, I'm fine. And I have to, return the atmosphere in a positive, nice one, or to
Yeah.
help the speaker sometimes because they are too nervous, to give them confidence. And all this is not necessarily something that you can prepare 100% before.
For
You
sure.
really have to have the spirit of the situation to improvise, to notice things. And sometimes, like in the case of this, just to pay attention to the talks and be able to take questions or even ask questions yourself. And I
Yeah.
think I might even write an article. I keep saying this about this because I really want to show that MCs are not just in between talks. Their
Mm,
presence sometimes make the conference better, engaged, more engaged, and I think they do bring a lot of value.
yeah. To be honest, for me, being an MC at the Test.js Summit last year was the first time I did that. In the first day, I was super nervous, and in the second day, I was feeling so good because I kind of already knew what was coming, and I had already experimented in the first day, so I was feeling a lot better, and uh, and I think it's like as you said, it's a lot of work, not just. And I think actually what I was going to say is that I found it more interesting being an MC than being a speaker because I have already spoken in big conferences in Brazil, in Europe as well. And I
Mhm.
found it more interesting because you connect with the speakers offline after the talk or before the talk and things like that. And with the other MCs as well, like yourself, I had the chance to meet you. And I think this is such a great experience. I just loved it, and I want to do it again because it was such a nice experience.
Yeah, but also Thursdays was a really organized one.
Yeah,
I mean, you remember we were hearing the voice of the
yeah,
person back helping, so it was kind of high level of organization, really
Hmm.
big was there. And even that, paying attention both to a talk and also to the person in the back, because they were saying 3, 2, 1, you go live,
Yeah.
you have to cut and everything. It's a hard job. It wasn't easy. And as a
Yeah.
speaker, they would just come for the QA, maybe because there was pre-recorded talk, 10
Yeah.
minutes, but you had to be the liaison between the talk, the Q&A, and the next one too. Yeah, that
Yeah.
just was cool.
Yeah. One other question that I have, which we briefly talked before, but I wanted to explore a little bit more, is how do we make people feel safe when they are in a community, online or offline community?
It's a very hard one. It's a very hard question, and I find it very different to implement
Mm.
in different communities. I struggled. Now I'm not
Or
necessarily struggling, but I struggled
so,
to
so
make like an easy rule or
mhm,
something, because it's easy for us to say like, oh, we have a code of conduct in place in most of the
yeah,
community and conferences that we attend, but we also need to give people the power to come to us to tell us when something is not safe for them. And
exactly.
these situations are so diverse because you we come from different backgrounds, so something might offend us and someone else not.
Mm.
Also our confidence, because when you grow up and you're very strong as a person, someone saying something a bit nasty or more controversial to you, maybe you don't put up with that. You're not bothered, but others are just different raised in different contexts and environment. They are not so accepting of everything. They want to be more respected or
Yeah.
treated better, not even say situations which are really violent or
Hmm.
either communication or physically. So you definitely have to put some rules in place. And the
Yeah.
second step, and most important, will to follow on the rules all the time, to explain people that we do care about that, that is not just a paper or a text somewhere, to put yourself available to treat such situation, for them to be able to contact you in case of anything and have actions at the end. It's very hard on communities to honestly block some toxic people and maybe have amazing contribution. And probably this is a very controversial topic in open source communities,
Mm.
where people are super valuable from the technical point of view, but as a personality, I'm sorry to say, they are shitty persons and they just are so hard to work for. And it's always a debate, what's more
Mm.
important, the work they do or the bad situations they create, which one you want to deal. I really think that we have to be more considerate and take actions
Yeah.
towards the people that are toxic or mean in the communities. And to be sure, we do create this safe space that we mention all the time, and to tell people, hey, thanks for joining this community. We do care about your safety. If something happens, ping us, tell us. Here is a contact. Don't be afraid. Don't just, because some people, especially in online, it's easy. Someone will talk something bad and you just disconnect, and that's it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't fix the community, doesn't help the community. Okay, you can say bye to a community and leave it, but tell us the situation so we can improve it, and in order not to happen again for somebody else, at
Mm.
least to learn something from the situation.
I'm
I
curious,
remember.
did you have any experience with like some kind of retrospective of an event or something where people could bring things related to safety or to people not feeling safe or something like that? Because you mentioned like you have to act after you get the information, right? So I'm curious about that.
So I did have people telling me, and I did experience some bullying.
Hmm.
uh, I am one of those strong persons that somehow I'm not gonna break if they call me. I am at that point in my life when I have a thick skin, but I 100% sure that that doesn't matter at this point. I don't want to change the thing. So um, for example, in Mozilla Reps, the program that I mentioned, and as a module owner right now I am there,
Yeah.
we do have this process where you can report. A group of people analyze it, both from volunteers and from corporation side employees,
Hmm.
and they do actions on it, which means that in some cases we just communicate, hey, your behavior was not good towards the community, someone felt offended, or someone really got hurt by that, or your contributions were bringing bad behavior, inattention. Fortunately, I've never been in violent situation, mostly like verbal violence.
Hmm.
Um, but promoting all the time the good example and in a way punishing or just saying this is not okay, not necessarily
Yeah.
punishing, stating that something is not okay helps. In my case was that I was I was treated like, oh, you don't deserve to be here and stuff like that. But I always got the support from others to tell me, no,
Hmm.
Joanna, your place is here. You should continue. Don't let them drown you or don't let them take you down.
Yeah.
Probably as a woman in tech, it's very often this feeling. But if you have the peers to help you, again, if you see a path of good examples,
Yeah.
that encourages you to continue because you know that's the way you want to do. Don't let situation to just derail you from your contribution, telling you that something is bad there or you do
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I like to mention like we have to lead by example, and we have to look for people that inspire us, that we want to. And I want to, and I think we should have more and more of these people that are like not just telling how to do, but doing it right.
Yeah, and so I don't think we should, cover or put the dust under the carpet and hide it. No, we have to accept life is hard.
Yeah.
Communities are.
Yeah.
We have to learn. Nothing is perfect from the beginning. We just have to have the intention to build it correctly.
Yeah. And what advice would Ioana give to someone that is willing to be part of a community?
Don't be afraid to try new stuff. If you're working tech, try something like project management. If you only wrote code, try speaking in public. I
Mm-hmm.
have this thing that if I can do it, someone else can do it even better. And that is because I contribute to many places. So I'm doing so many things sometimes that some other person dedicated to one will do it 10 times better. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do it just for the sake I'm doing it. I encourage all the people to just make this first step, this leap of faith, take it, do something outside your regular stuff, and you will literally find an amazing world.
I love the advice of like getting out of your comfort zone, trying it out, something new.
Yeah. Of course, if
It's
you don't like it, you can always
yeah,
go back. And
yeah,
it's
for
like, I
sure.
tried it. It's not
It's
for
a
me.
safe place, right?
Yeah, it's like, also, I spoke. I don't like speaking at conferences. Okay, do something else. But at
Yeah,
least you tried, and it's.
yeah, for sure. Is there anything here that that I didn't ask you, which you would you like to add?
Mm, not really. No,
Yeah,
I
I
think
usually.
I would maybe want to add that another thing important for me was to help others in terms of understanding the web, even if it's like kids or adults.
Hmm.
Um, And with this comes again of the safety to let them know that the internet is not necessarily just a place where you go to pages and read. Bad things can happen. So teach them about
Yeah,
privacy, teach them about literacy. That I was always joking that people will say like, "Oh, is there a person in the back searching for what I say?" No, it's an algorithm, and try
yeah,
them to explain that everything is controlled and they should understand the system. They don't have to code. I have this saying, not everyone has to be a programmer. No.
yeah, for sure.
Literally everyone going from now on, they need to understand the systems. Computer systems, anything they use. If you go at a shop, you see they use different tools, different machines, scanning, giving you stuff, lifting stuff. If it's a
Yeah,
doctor with a very dedicated, delicate operation, they for sure will use some arms or robots. So
yeah,
I really think that they have to just understand the system in order to trust them more.
yeah. Awesome. I usually leave some minutes in the end for my guests to promote any initiatives. Do you have any that you would like to promote here?
Um, Initiatives right now. Well, I do believe that people should try to use the how to say like products in the raw state. So definitely give a try to Firefox, even in nightly version or the release or beta. The product I'm working now with Box, it's a platform that allows them to share the code. So if you want just start learning coding, or if you have a team, use it, tell us how you feel about it. It was also a funny story that the mission that the company has, the company that I work with now, has this um, values of being accessible for everyone, to empower people. It's exactly what, through the communities that I've been a volunteer or part of now, I was trying
Mm.
to help others. So for sure, giving back to communities, it's now part of my daily focus too, because I'm very fortunate. I really feel a fortunate person with all my work in the communities I did till now.
Awesome. Ioana, it was great speaking with you. And for you that are watching the conversation here, I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, then subscribe to the channel and share this content with your network so they can enjoy this conversation as well. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.
Thank you.